Happy holidays from the Behind the Bells podcast.
Marker. And action.
This is Behind the Bells, the show that takes you behind the magic of your favorite Christmas movies and shows. Within the background of every Santa Claus, reindeer, and stocking is a story. Where did it come from? Our Christmas movie expert will unravel all of that and give you the full story. Sit back and enjoy another episode with Robert Nicholas.
Merry Monday, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bells. I'm your host, Robert Nicholas, and I'll be taking you on another one-horse open sleigh ride into the world of Christmas movies. We're in the thicket of the Christmas season. It's the middle of December, and many of you are waiting for a new episode from me. I'm working on another deep dive and an additional Almost Christmas, but I wanted to do something special for you this season. I would have gotten out another episode sooner, but something big has happened in my life. I got married. On December 3rd, I married my girlfriend, famliy, in a nice ceremony surrounded by our families and close friends. We said our vows, in which mine included lyrics from The Power of Love from Back to the Future. We kissed, we danced, we got to ride in a classic London cab for our getaway vehicle. Now I'm about to celebrate Christmas for the first time with my new wife. So yeah, I've been a little occupied this year. The good news is that with the wedding behind me and our honeymoon not for a couple of weeks, we still get plenty of time to have ourselves a merry little Christmas. We just got our first tree, which was a real one as I'm a big believer in them. We've already wrapped some presents together, and of course, watched a lot of Christmas movies. It's been fun to compare each other's classics, what we grew up with, and see which ones really embody the spirit of the season. As I was typing down some more ideas for episodes, I realized that I have yet to do one on something that showcases my all-time favorite Christmas movies. Yeah, a couple of years of doing this podcast, and I have yet to count down the ones that I consistently go back to. The ones that have the stories that become more magical each December, the ones that held a certain place in my heart and remind me that Christmas is about our connection to people. Most know this, but coming up with a top 10 favorites list is never easy. I like to think that every movie has had at least one positive impact on somebody. The Christmas season adds another layer because it's going to become more of a tradition. Whether you go to a movie theater to catch a rescreening or find something streaming on Netflix, people return to hit a nostalgic point to bring them closer to the Christmas they need. Being a cinematic nut, I of course have seen a lot, and because I'm always uncovering something unexpected, my list has changed a lot. So let's call this more of a top 10 favorite Christmas movies as of 2023. I want to emphasize that this is not a ranking of what I consider the best. Something like that is more about the movies that I'd have you turn to if you needed to know where to start. My favorites is a way for you to know a little more about me. Do they say something about my views on Christmas? Of course. Without turning this episode into a girlish diary recounting, let's jump into my top 10 favorite Christmas movies of all time. So keep your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times. Let's go for a ride. Number 10, Holiday Inn. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know. Those lyrics should sound familiar as they came from the title song, not from the movie White Christmas, but rather Holiday Inn. It's unfortunate that Holiday Inn has become lost in time, as most people that want an old-fashioned crooner Christmas tend to gravitate more towards White Christmas. Some of it is because White Christmas is in Technicolor while Holiday Inn's in black and white, but I think it's also because White Christmas is more of a genuine full Christmas movie, while Holiday Inn is really only within the season at the beginning and towards the end. But I'll always defend Holiday Inn as the better of these musicals. I've covered Holiday Inn before, but it's essentially a jukebox musical by Irving Berlin, as he tells the story of Jim, played by Bing Crosby, who tries to retire from the entertainment world by buying a farm. But months of dealing with the dusty ranch hands and persistent barnyard noises makes him realize he hates it. So what does he do? He turns it into a resort that's only open on the holidays. But like a lot of these old musicals, Jim has to compete with a friend who's also a dancer, Ted, played by Fred Astaire, for the heart of a young woman, Linda, played by Marjorie Reynolds. As the year plays out, we go from Lincoln's birthday to Valentine's Day to Easter to the 4th of July, as we go through some very impressive numbers that are also themed to each day. Washington's birthday has everyone in 18th century clothes, while on Independence Day, Ted taps to my favorite song, Let's Say It with Firecrackers. It all cultivates into a very fun movie that doesn't become held back by White Christmas's slower pace. Does this mean I dislike White Christmas? Absolutely not. It'll always have a special place in my heart as something my grandpa and I used to watch every December. I still hum along to Sisters, Snow, or even The Old Man. But when I saw Holiday Inn a few years ago, I was taken aback by how much of a tighter story it was and how much the songs did a better job progressing the story forward. I'm already not a fan of musical songs that are there just to be songs.
Happy holiday, happy holiday, while the merry bells keep ringing, may your every wish come true. Happy holiday, happy holiday,
may the calendar keep ringing.
Not to mention that this is the movie that actually made the song White Christmas an Oscar-winning piece. Yeah, who would have thought that a movie that won an Oscar would be forgotten over time? Okay, to be fair, there's a lot, but this one shouldn't be one of them. Holiday Inn never wastes either of its leads. Bing Crosby gets a lot of moments to belt out his smooth, velvety voice, which always feels like playing an old friend a visit for the season. Fred Astaire, though I still need to see his classic movies with Ginger Rogers, really shows how much of a phenomenal dancer he was. There's too many to name, but he really was one of the best. Plus, he was really funny. Holiday Inn may be a tougher pitch to younger audiences, but here's something that could help make the movie more educational. Bing Crosby was considered one of the first multi-platform artists. For 1942, we need to remember that radio, nightclubs, and movies were the only way for a star to be born. Bing was one of the first to tap into all of them to make himself popular for all ages. It's the equivalent of a star today that also has a large social media following. Holiday Inn is that lovely antique you pull out of the box every Christmas. It's aged, but it's aged into something beautiful. Holiday Inn is the musical that'll make your days merry and bright. Number 9. Klaus. From the 1940s to something so recent that it comes from Netflix, Klaus blew me away and has quickly grown to be one of my favorites. It's a really unique origin story for Santa Claus that's neither the exact St. Nicholas of Myra, nor the guy who lives at the North Pole with elves. It's not even a complete story just on Santa. It's really about how generosity really can change people. Oh, and it happens to be a rare hand-drawn looking animated movie. But even that's different also. So, what's the story really about? We follow an arrogant postman in training, Jesper, played by Jason Schwartzman, who's sent to the far northern island of Smearensburg to prove he can stand on his own. The town is cold, both literally and figuratively, as the region is snow-covered and stormy, along with the town split into two, all because of two families who started a feud years ago. Jesper's shunned by everyone, but is determined to get letters delivered and finds his answers within a reclusive woodcarver, Klaus, played by J.K. Simmons. Due to events that I won't spoil, Jesper gets the idea that if kids continue to write letters to Klaus, they'll get a gift, thus giving him the proof that he's doing his job and giving him his ticket to eventually leave. Jesper and Klaus team up to deliver the toys, while unexpectedly making everyone better people, including themselves. Klaus isn't just comfort food. Klaus is a movie I will always walk away feeling good, having a strong optimism in people, with the good that can be done. One selfless act does inspire another. It's amazing how much this movie showcases why children's happiness is so important around Christmas. Yes, they're getting a present, but what's that present really about? It's about the feeling that someone does care for them. No matter how bad things are, they can wake up knowing that at least one person wants to make their world a little better. Again, I won't give away this other part, but there's a side plot about a Sami girl who doesn't speak English but really wants to send a letter to Klaus. The end result is so sweet and uplifting that I always shed a tear and crack a smile at the same time. What really brings this story together is the acting of both Jason Schwartzman and J.K. Simmons. Schwartzman's snarky tone could have easily made him too unlikable, but it keeps it just at a level in which you do want to see him learn his lesson.
Okay, post office is now officially open. You have your letters, step right in. Thank you, thank you.
Ah! Hey, loser! What gives? I sent my letter and all I got was a lousy clump of coal.
Well, it serves you right. Devilish little tadpoles like yourself don't get toys from Klaus.
Oh, yeah? And how would he know what I'm up to unless you ratted on me?
Oh, I didn't have to. He knows.
What do you mean?
He sees everything, you know. Every mischief, prank, and dirty deed. He keeps a list. The naughty list, he calls it.
You lie.
Trust me, you do not want to be on the naughty list.
Because of that, he's also our movie's butt monkey, getting the worst when he needs it. But by the time he does want to do genuine good, you feel like you want to be this guy. Simmons plays our Santa more like a guy who's looking for a new purpose in life after tragic events made him who he is. Yes, he does come off a little scary, but we see that hidden within his giant body is the soul of a saint who simply wants others to be happy.
You know, I remember the day I first had that very same smile on my face.
What? What smile? I wasn't smiling. I was squinting from the sun.
Right. I didn't want to admit it at first either. She used to tease me about it.
She?
My Lydia. I remember when I found this spot in the woods that she loved. And I built us a house right here. Away from it all. But it wasn't going to be the two of us for long. We wanted children. Lots of them. Running around, laughing, getting in trouble. While we waited, I started making toys for them. And we waited, and I kept making toys and more toys.
Here's another one. What do you think?
And we kept waiting, but they never came.
When he has to confront his own demons, Simmons really shines of how much of a good actor he can be. He earns his mantle as Santa more than a lot of other Santas I've seen. I could see Klaus having been an easy movie to do with CGI animation that every studio does, but director Sergio Pablos went the extra mile to not only bring his movie into the hand-drawn realm, but to really make it his own. It's obvious they still use computers to make these characters come to life, but through a combination of lighting and shading, along with this design, Klaus made me realize just how much I miss this style. We've seen a lot of modern kids go back to a lot of the hand-drawn classics Disney used to make, along with them watching a lot of anime. There's a clear audience for these kinds of movies, and I hope studios start to wake up to this kind of potential. The Christmas season is about making our loved ones feel good, and Klaus always reminds me of that. I'm glad that it hasn't gotten lost in the algorithm shuffle that a lot of streaming services do, and I really want to see this become a classic. It warms my heart to know that for some, it's already that. Number 8. Miracle on 34th Street. Ah yes, this movie is the perfect answer to the always asked question, is there a Santa Claus? But it's also a great look into how, ironically, our search for the perfect present has made us lose sight on the real goal of Christmas. Shopping, pushing ourselves through crowds, and many of those stores using their own greedy tactics to guide people. Things like this are the big reason why many dread the holiday season. But who better than Santa Claus to give us a reminder? It's the 1940s, in which department stores are larger than life and dominate the retail space. Macy's is getting ready for its annual Thanksgiving Day parade when the actor playing Santa ends up in a drunken stupor. Quick thinking by store manager Doris, played by Maureen O'Hara, leads her to this man, Kris Kringle, played by Edmund Gwenn, who agrees to fill in and be their official Santa for the season. Not only does this guy embody the jolly and caring spirit Santa should have, but he goes as far to help parents by sending them to other stores to buy the toys their children want. But the real trouble starts when Doris' daughter Susan, played by Natalie Wood, is told by Kris that he is in fact the real Santa. This creates her own existential crisis, along with a worried Doris who thinks she's hired a crazy person. Things get crazier when Kris ends up in court where he has to prove he is Santa. What sounds like a complicated story is actually simple. Many children face the inevitable question of whether there is a magical man that can go around the world in one night to deliver presents to every child. Miracle on 34th Street does a fantastic job at explaining what Santa truly is. Everything about Kris is ambiguous other than he lives in New York and his doctor says he's always been of sound mind. What's clear is that he hopes everyone can have the same spirit of giving, even if this means sacrificing something that could benefit yourself. He may not persuade everyone, including Macy's in-house psychologist, but he does get an entire city on his side by Christmas Eve. Even an army of postmen come to the rescue within the climax. This also sounds like a story for children when it's really more about the adults and their doubts. Don't get me wrong, Natalie Wood is phenomenal as a girl who is forced to grow up too fast by her mother, but Santa's really here hoping Doris and the other parents can understand that making the children happy is the important thing. And as long as the child is happy, then Santa Claus is real. I obviously have to note our Kris Kringle, Edmund Gwenn, who was so good that he is the only man to play Santa to have won an Oscar for that. Taking that out, he carries the jolliness you'd want Santa to have without going over the top. He takes the part like playing a dignified king, if he so happened to need to play a mall Santa. He talks to each child like they were adults and really listens to them.
Yes, Peter's a fine name. What do you want for Christmas, Peter?
I want a fire engine just like the big ones, only smaller. It has a real hose that squirts well hot water, and I won't do it in the house. I'll only do it in the backyard. I promise.
Macy's ain't got any. Nobody's got any.
Well, Peter, I can tell you're a good boy. You'll get your fire engine.
Oh, thank you very much. You see? I told you he'd get me one.
That's fine. That's just dandy. Listen, you wait over there. Mama wants to thank Santa Claus, too. Say, listen, what's the matter with you? Don't you understand English? I tell you, Macy's ain't got any. Nobody's got any. I've been all over. My feet are killing me. Fine thing, promising the kid.
Now, you don't think I would have said that unless I was sure, do you? You can get those fire engines at Schoenfeld's on Lexington Avenue. Only $8.50, a wonderful bargain.
Schoenfeld's? I don't get it.
Oh, I keep track of the toy market pretty closely. Does that surprise you, sir?
Surprise me. Macy sending people to other stores. Are you kidding me?
Well, the only important thing is to make the children happy. And whether Macy or somebody else sells a toy doesn't make any difference. Don't you feel that way?
Huh? Who, me? Oh, yeah, sure. Only I didn't know Macy's did.
Well, as long as I'm here, they do.
I don't get it. No? I just don't get it.
By the time we're in the trial, we're just as engrossed in the case as if we were watching 12 Angry Men. We, the audience, knows he's Santa and hopes that the judge finds it in his heart to see that too. Maureen O'Hara was perfect in her role as the mom with a hard, frozen exterior. When you find out what she's been through, you do get an understanding of why she would be the kind of mother to a mature girl like Susan. She cares for her daughter dearly, but has forgotten that children need that magical time of innocence. Christmas is that perfect embodiment to see the world within that magic. Miracle on 34th Street is that Christmas movie that'll make adults believe in the generosity and good spirit that people are capable of, even in the most cynical of environments. It's the movie that makes the strong case of, yes, there is a Santa Claus. Number 7. The 1984 Christmas Carol. It wouldn't be Christmas without the classic Charles Dickens story. It just so happens that it's so popular that there are tons of versions out there. But if you were to ask me what I thought was the best representation of what the novel was, then I'd have to go with the George C. Scott version. Most people know the story of Ebenezer Scrooge and how a visit from three spirits over the course of Christmas Eve changes his ways and reminds him the generosity that Christmas encourages. I've seen a lot of different retellings, but this British-American production both captures the tone of the novel while making new choices that makes this completely unique. I might as well start playing a clip of Patton himself, George C. Scott, in the role of the miser.
Merry Christmas, Uncle. I said, Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle. Surely you don't mean that.
I do. What's Christmas but a time for buying things for which you have no need, no money? Time for finding yourself a year older, not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Come now, Uncle.
Neville, you keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone, then.
What's fascinating about his portrayal is that Scrooge himself isn't the overly serious man that we've seen him in before. This Scrooge has more of a sense of humor that makes him more relatable. You get an idea that this Scrooge has seen the worst of people and how grateful he is in his position. He's aware that he could fall just as fast as he's got there and doesn't want to come out like a fool. So instead of brushing off life's simple joys like a grouch, he'll do so with a smile, as if Fred had asked him to waste a day doing something stupid, like being with his only family. George C. Scott is also unconventional because he's the only American cast in the movie, and yet most people don't even seem to notice. He didn't need a British accent. He just needed to slip into this character, and his showcase feels a lot more genuine than a lot of actors that have either come off too grumpy or too confused.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Scrooge.
Don't beg on this corner, boy.
I'm not begging, sir. I'm Tim Cratchit. I'm waiting for my father.
Tim Cratchit, huh? Well, then you'll have a long wait, won't you?
Thank you, sir.
Humbug.
Did you even notice that no other adaptation has a scene of Scrooge meeting with Tiny Tim before his visit from the ghosts? It's not in the original story, but it also does a great job giving us an idea of both who Scrooge and Tiny Tim are. I've really enjoyed some of the other changes, including having Scrooge interact with his other business associates, showing more of his father when he goes back to his boyhood, and even his interaction with his nephew when he does come to their home on Christmas. When it does follow the story, A Christmas Carol has an amazing cast to pull it off. David Warner as Bob Cratchit, Angela Pleasance as the Ghost of Christmas Past, Edward Woodward as the Ghost of Christmas Present, Frank Finlay as Jacob Marley, Anthony Walters as Tiny Tim, and many more. They all take the roles very seriously and bring the classic text into natural dialogue. It's more than reciting the lines. It was really about bringing these characters to life. Out of the other adaptations, these characters feel the closest to the source, but are also enjoyable to see. This version of A Christmas Carol also has the benefit of not feeling like a larger-than-life production. We need to remember that this was originally made as a TV movie, so the production shot this story in the classic town of Shrewsbury in the Shropshire region of the Eastern England. Many of the buildings date back to the medieval era, and much of what we see in the movie was probably around when Charles Dickens wrote the story. It looked authentic because it was. The town is the kind of place I'd love to step into if I ever make it out to England during the holiday season. So many may say that a lot of adaptations has a similar small scale and good acting. Why is this one really good? Because I think it also gets the tone down better than most. A Christmas Carol is both a holiday tale and a ghost story, and you'd be surprised by how hard it is to balance that. We need to go into the spookier elements to appreciate the joyful moments at the end. This version walks the tightrope and delivers the emotional impact I want. Not only am I ready to celebrate the season, but I really want to do better for mankind. If you haven't seen the George C. Scott version of the story, give it a chance. It's my yearly reminder that the common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, benevolence were all my business. Number 6, The Muppet Christmas Carol. Okay, I promise this is the last time I include A Christmas Carol on my list. Yes, the George C. Scott version is the best adaptation in my opinion, but if you were to ask which version is my favorite, then of course I have to go with the 1992 Muppet Classic. Yeah, there is a nostalgic tie to it, but there's also a way to tell the story that makes this stand above the others. I don't really need to go into the plot again, but like before, Scrooge is still a miser who's visited by 3 spirits that change his heart for the better. It just so happens that instead of this being a large Muppet-based farce, it's a retelling of the classic story with Muppets in the cast, and Michael Caine in the role as Scrooge. By the early 90s, the Muppets was in a tough state. The Muppet Show was still popular as reruns still made them viable. They've had 3 hit movies, Sesame Street was still going strong, and they were still trying new ideas. But they were also pulling off their first major Muppet property without their creator Jim Henson, who had passed away in 1990. This also canceled an initial deal from Disney to purchase the Muppets for it in its whole. This movie had to show that the Muppets could continue. Thanks to the right people in charge, The Muppet Christmas Carol managed to find its rainbow connection and cultivated a real classic. I remember seeing this in theaters when I was 5 years old, thus making it the first Christmas Carol movie I saw on the big screen. Even though I hadn't seen much of the Muppets aside from Sesame Street, it didn't take long for me to be drawn into this very unique retelling.
Christmas is a very busy time for us, Mr. Cratchit. People preparing feasts, giving parties, spending the mortgage money on frivolities. One might say that December is the foreclosure season.
Harvest time for the moneylenders.
Boss, accent. Tell him, Mr. Yeah, come on. Do it now, boss.
If you please, Mr. Scrooge, it's gotten colder.
Yeah.
And the bookkeeping staff would like to have an extra shovel full of coal for the fire.
We can't do the bookkeeping.
Yeah, all of our pens have turned to inksicles.
Yeah, our assets are frozen.
How would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly
Unemployed! This is my island in the sun.
I believe you've convinced them once again, Mr. Scrooge.
This was so random and funny that I was laughing hard as a little kid. As an adult, I still get a nice chuckle. But this also represented just what everyone was getting into, It wasn't going to be the same classic story, but if anything, it was something better. It was taking those lovable characters like Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, Rizzo, Fozzie Bear, Animal, Stanley and Waldorf, and putting them into these roles just to see what they do. Yes, it absolutely turns the story into a comedy, but they don't skip out on the novel's more emotional parts. They still take the needed parts seriously, and it all worked because Michael Caine was the perfect straight man to the chaos. It didn't matter if he had a frog as an assistant, an eagle as a school teacher, or a bear as his boss at a rubber chicken factory. He was the one guy who took in all these Muppets and saw them as normal. Caine was playing the more traditional Scrooge, and I wouldn't have him doing it any other way. While George C. Scott probably gave the better performance, Caine's was still great because he still pulled in the emotional moments even when surrounded by Muppets. This is evident through the song Thankful Heart, where despite not being a strong singer, he was still joyful enough that it still sounded nice. Speaking of which, there have also been a couple of attempts at turning A Christmas Carol into a musical, but the Muppets version is still the best. I love hearing All of London opening to Scorn the Miser with Scrooge. I love seeing everyone celebrate with the arrival of the magical morning with It Feels Like Christmas. Though it's been a cut song for years, I even enjoyed the melody of Belle and Scrooge singing When Love Is Gone. The melodies are all catchy, and I find myself humming to them every now and then. I'll admit though that the one song I listen to the most is the haunting Marley and Marley. It warms my heart to see how many millennials like myself have called upon the Muppet Christmas Carol as their favorite adaptation. It speaks volumes on how simply making a classic story entertaining without needing to add in any modern day catchphrases or stupid pop songs can make it timeless. It still holds up in 2023, and it seems like many millennial parents have now made this a hit for their children. The Muppet Christmas Carol will always feel like Christmas as long as I can return to Gonzo narrating this unique version every year. We're going to take a short break, but we'll return with the top 5 momentarily.
This December, the Christmas Podcast Network is bringing you the ultimate dose of holiday hilarity. It's the Christmas Podcast Network All-Star Comedy Christmas Show. We've gathered your favorite podcast hosts from the Christmas Podcast Network for a night of nonstop laughter, festive fun, and more Christmas cheer than you can shake a candy cane at. All your favorites are here, ready to light up the stage with comedy that's hotter than chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
I've got a joke for you. Why did the Christmas tree go to the barber?
I don't know, Mike. Why did the Christmas tree go to the barber?
It wanted a trim.
That's a tremendous joke, Mike.
We prepared a holiday medley featuring all of the classics with a comedic twist.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny rubber chicken.
Speaking of rubber chickens, did you hear about the one that auditioned for a Christmas play?
Oh no, not more chicken jokes.
Ouch, that was dumb. I mean, we couldn't get any of the writers from Breaking Bad or The Sopranos in here to punch this up just a bit? No? No? Anybody? No?
Do you think they'll deliver a punchline tonight?
If they do, it'll be a Christmas miracle.
Expect holiday sketches, hilarious improv, and some surprise festive twists that'll leave you rolling on the floor like a snowball down a hill.
Should I do a dramatic reading of Dickens? How about a Frosty the Snowman-inspired rap that will slay the crowd?
That's no good.
I've been working on my George Bailey impression. What do you think? Merry Christmas, you wonderful old building and loan!
You've nailed it, Scott. Now who's up for a game of Christmas charades?
This is Mary Madness, and I love it.
Tonight's special is a gingerbread stew. It's a stew I threw a gingerbread house into. Just don't eat the gingerbread house, it's more for decoration.
Yes, it's holiday gold. This is like a comedy snowstorm. Non-stop laughs.
I've got my ugly Christmas sweater on. It's so ugly. It's almost cute.
That's the spirit, Chris. I've been perfecting my Santa laugh. Listen to this. Ho, ho, ho!
You know, I've been practicing my own Santa impression. Ho, ho, ho.
This Santa sounds a bit like a pirate, no?
Let's make sure we're all on the nice list tonight, okay, folks? I've got presents for everyone. But beware, some might just be empty boxes filled with holiday puns. Now, who's up for some festive improv?
So mark your calendars for December 32nd, set those reminders, and get ready for a Yuletide laugh riot.
I've got a list of dad jokes longer than Santa's naughty list.
Speaking of lists, did you hear about the snowman who wanted to be on the nice list?
Yeah, he was aiming for a flurry of good deeds.
How about a little holiday magic? Watch me turn a candy cane into a string of twinkling lights.
Lights. Watch me turn this candy cane into a spaghetti noodle.
That is possibly the most creative trick I've seen.
I've got a joke for you all. Why did the Christmas cookie go to therapy?
I don't know, Charlie. Why did the Christmas cookie go to therapy?
It was feeling a little crummy inside.
That's enchanting, Charlie. Maybe we should tell ghost stories. Nothing like a good Christmas scare.
This is shaping up to be the jolliest night ever.
Hey, I've got a Christmas confession. I still watch animated holiday specials.
No shame in that, Ashley. I do too. In fact, I rate them on a scale of 1 to tinsel.
Don't miss it, folks. The Christmas Podcast Network All-Star Comedy Christmas Show. Because the best way to spread Christmas cheer is sing... Nope. Don't want any copyright strikes. I'm not going to say that.
From all of us at the Christmas Podcast Network to all of you.
Merry Christmas! It's the Christmas Podcast Network All-Star Comedy Christmas Show, only on CPN. You'll love it. Oh no, copyright!
And now back to the show with our Christmas movie expert, Robert Nicholas.
Number 5, It's a Wonderful Life. This classic featuring James Stewart is a holiday staple for a lot of reasons. This ends up on most holidays movies lists, and even though I wanted to offer my own perspective, I have to admit that this is an amazing movie. Those that know about it but never seen it before are aware of the movie's plot of an angel coming to George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, and shows him an alternate timeline of what if he was never born. He'd go from the small town charm of Bedford Falls to the seedy and grimy Pottersville. He'd see that his mother doesn't recognize him, his brother has died, his father's savings and loan had shuttered, and his wife Mary, played by Donna Reed, has become a lonely spinster. This makes him realize that his life before was better than he realized. The time travel story is certainly an important part, but It's a Wonderful Life is a lot more than a Twilight Zone-like fantasy. It's really about how one person can impact other lives without knowing it. You can call it destiny or the stones falling into place. But the movie is a nice journey into an ordinary man who had big plans for life, but circumstances kept taking him away. He never becomes an architect, goes to college, or even travels the world, but what he does is more selfless and generous. In his eyes, he takes over his father's business so that the town mogul, Mr. Potter, doesn't have his hands on everything. But to everyone else, they see George as someone who is willing to stand up to a bully and gives up everything he's wanted just to make everyone's lives better. What makes this an amazing story is how relatable it is. George Bailey is not taking a lot of the changes well. In fact, there's a lot of moments where he becomes very angry and frustrated that things rarely ever went his way. He's clearly wanted a different life, but his compassion on others prevented that. It's a case of someone's flaw of being too nice.
The doctor, was the doctor here?
Yes, I called him right away. He said it's nothing to worry
Is she
about.
running a temperature? What is that?
Just a teensy one, 99.6. She'll be all right.
Of course, it's this old house. I don't know why we don't all have pneumonia. The drafty old barn of a place. Might well be living in a refrigerator. Why do we have to live here in the first place and stay around this measly, crummy old town?
George, what's wrong?
Wrong everything, Troy. You call this a happy family. Why do we have to have all these kids?
Dad, how do you spell frankincense?
I don't know. Why, ask your mother.
Where are you going?
Going up to see Zeus.
It's a Wonderful Life has held up nicely over its 70 plus years of being a staple because everyone can relate to someone who's never met their dreams. But they can also relate because as long as they can look at their life from a different perspective, most can realize that we do have good lives. George still married, he had a lot of beautiful kids, managed to create a business that Mr. Potter could never have, but most importantly, he created a nice network of friends that all come to him at his darkest moment. Yes, everyone finds about his troubles and they come together to pray to God. But the final payoff is something I don't want to spoil.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
There is a reason that people go back to the quote, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. It's a Wonderful Life measures what people are capable of, what angels are capable of. The movie reminds us that no matter how bad a situation can get, there's always something to be grateful for. It doesn't matter how wealthy someone is, no matter how often they traveled. A good life is not too hard to have, you just have to look hard. Number 4. Joyeux Noël. It's time for a history lesson. No, not the nativity and the birth of Jesus, though that's a great story also. No, we're going to look into the 1914 Christmas truce, at least as showcased through the 2005 French film Joyeux Noël. German, French, and British troops were all facing each other, all within trenches and getting ready for whatever orders the superiors were about to order them. It could be a straight attack, could be launching of more shells, but everyone was afraid that they wouldn't make it to another day. They were separated by a large field called No Man's Land, but there was nothing there except for the bodies of previous soldiers that perished. Through a variety of events that include the English playing carols on bagpipes, the French cheering on, and one of the German soldiers being an acclaimed opera singer and hosting an improv concert, all three sides agreed to a temporary ceasefire for Christmas Eve. This results in everyone coming out to exchange gifts, show pictures of family, and even hold an all-welcome midnight mass. This ends up creating problems the next day as the men who just shared good tidings with the other side no longer want to shoot them. They continue mingling, allowing each other's sides to collect the dead, play some football matches, and even protect the side from being shelled. This film is a showcase in which how Christmas is strong enough of a mindset that it could stop a war, even if it was for a small time frame. I'll admit that this may not be the easiest sit. There are a lot of moments that'll really show the real brutality of war, from the meat grinder that was the invention of the machine gun to the generals on all sides that took more comfort than casualty from their ivory tower. No matter what difference each country had, they were all being told the same thing: to kill as many people as possible. But for this famous moment in 1914, Christmas was able to put a stop to that. Joyeux Noël was smart enough to showcase the various different sides and the effect that the Christmas truce had on each other. Gary Lewis plays a British priest who ends up leading the midnight mass. Bennett Thuman and Diane Kruger play German lovers and singers who return to the front lines to sing for their troops. Guillaume Canet plays a French lieutenant who leads his troops but hopes to make it home to see his pregnant wife again. I wouldn't call this an anthology story, but none of these ever become boring. If anything, when they all come together for that fateful Christmas Eve, it's more meaningful and portrays just how similar we are.
Tell me, Lieutenant, what did you put in your report to the HQ?
Well, I wrote 24th of December 1914. No hostilities on the German side tonight.
Well, that's the truth. Tonight, these men were drawn to that altar like it was a fire in the middle of winter. Even those who aren't devout came to warm themselves. Maybe just to be together. Maybe to forget about the war.
Maybe. But the war won't forget us.
Julia Noel was powerful when I first saw this, and each year, this gives me the feeling that even within the darkest of wars, there are more people that want to make peace than kill one another. It just so happens that because of some people in charge and the influence that they can't shake, they would rather win. Christmas reminds us that life isn't about winning, but succeeding. Everyone can succeed. This movie is an amazing history lesson about the Christmas that stopped a war. I highly recommend that you think about giving this a chance to really show how far the Christmas spirit can really take you. Number 3. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I know it's a jarring shift to go from the darkness of World War I to one of the great 80s comedies, but there's a reason we see a lot of the quotes on t-shirts and even people cosplaying as the Griswolds. Christmas Vacation is that Christmas comedy that everyone can relate to, in which you try to give the perfect Christmas, but everything of course goes wrong. Some people might have preferred that I put a Christmas story within this spot, but I'm saving that later for reasons. But like that one, Christmas Vacation 2 has a lot of nostalgic ties, as I saw this one when I was around 7, which I might have made me a little young, but I still found it hilarious. As an adult, I still laugh myself silly. Maybe a little more now that I always try to give the best Christmas for my family, but similar to Clark, I guess I'm just a little naive.
Dad, didn't they invent Christmas tree lots so people wouldn't have to drive all the way out to nowhere and waste a whole Saturday?
They invented them, Russ, because people forgot how to have a fun, old-fashioned family Christmas and are satisfied with scrawny, dead, overpriced trees that have no special meaning.
My toes are numb.
You see, kids, this is what our forefathers did.
I can't feel my leg.
They walked out into the woods, they picked out that special tree, and they cut it down with their bare hands.
Mom, I can't feel my hips.
Clark.
Yes, honey?
Audrey's frozen from the waist down.
That's all part of the experience, honey.
Technically being the third film within the Vacation saga, Clark Griswold, played by Chevy Chase, wants an old-fashioned family Christmas, much to the chagrin of his wife Ellen, played by Beverly D'Angelo, and his kids Rusty, played by John Galecki, and Audrey, played by Juliette Lewis. Clark invites both sets of grandparents to stay, along with his cousin Eddie, played by Randy Quaid, crashing. It's essentially watching the lives of these people as they simply make the best of the holiday. But if you've seen the other Vacation movies, then you know that they all have the worst luck. There's way too many scenes and gags to name. The family's humongous tree, Clark getting stuck in the attic, the bougie yuppie neighbors from hell, the ugliest RV that Eddie brings with him, the dry as a desert turkey that's carved, the cat that gets electrocuted, the sled experience that broke the sound barrier, the Jelly of the Month Club that leads into one of the greatest rants on screen.
Clark.
This isn't the biggest bag over the head punch in the face I ever got. God damn it! Son. Hey! If any of you are looking for any last-minute gift ideas for me, I have one. I like Frank Shirley, my boss, right here tonight. I want him brought from his happy holiday slumber over there on Melody Lane with all the other rich people, and I want him brought right here with a big ribbon on his head. And I want to look him straight in the eye, and I want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no-good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is! Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Once I get around to doing a deep dive into Christmas Vacation, I just may have to do a top 10 gags from the movie list. The reason that the movie feels so relatable is because writer John Hughes knew that personal experience was going to be the best way to connect with his audience. How many of us have known someone who got the wrong size treat? Someone that overcooked the food and was served anyway? Dealing with relatives that weren't all mentally there? It shouldn't be a surprise to know that John Hughes wrote the movie based on a story that he wrote for the National Lampoon magazine that was really about his own personal Christmases. What really sells the movie is all the comedic talent. Comedies work because of the talent delivering the material, and every single person is casted perfectly. Not even just the main family, but even the smaller characters like Uncle Lewis and Aunt Bethany.
Before we begin, since this is Aunt Bethany's 80th Christmas, I think she should lead us in the saying of grace.
Oh, great. What, dear? Grace! Grace! She passed away 30 years ago.
They want you to say grace. The blessing.
As for Clark himself, Chevy Chase has become so connected to the character that for a lot of young people that see Christmas Vacation for the first time, this is their first exposure to the actor. I can understand finding the actor himself very divisive, but I'm in the camp that considers him a comedic talent. He's absolutely perfect as the family man who himself is not even that great of a guy. He'll openly flirt with the lingerie saleswoman, ditch the chaos to let Ellen deal with it. He'll even lash at his family when his own work life goes down the toilet. Most comedians would have made this person too unlikable, but Chevy nailed the right balance. When he smiles at the end, you really feel like that this Christmas still came out great with everything going wrong. Christmas isn't about making everything perfect. It's about the memory you created. This just becomes the year that everyone will look back on and realize that they did get closer. Were you surprised by that? Well, if I woke up tomorrow and woke up with my head sewn to the carpet, I'd be confused. But National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation would still be the movie I'd look at and say, I understand that. Number 2. Arthur Christmas. Yep, a film as recent as 2011, which also makes it 12 years old, has not only made it on my list, but it's only climbed higher each year. It takes a new approach to how we see Santa Claus, gives it a modern spin without losing the vintage charm of the classic sleigh and reindeer, and still gives us an amazing story about the dynamic of family generations. At the end of A Long Christmas Eve, Santa Malcolm, played by Jim Broadbent, has just completed his annual mission around the world. But thanks to modern technology and the management of his eldest son Steve, played by Hugh Laurie, Santa and his large army of elves ensures that every child around the world receives a present without being discovered. All except for one. It's discovered that a young girl in England didn't get the bicycle that she wrote Santa for. It was on the ship, wrapped and ready to go, but it was an oversight that Steve simply wants to write off as a small miscalculation. So how are they going to get there? Through the efforts of Santa's youngest son Arthur, played by James McAvoy, his grandfather played by Bill Nighy, and rapping elf Bryony, played by Ashley Jensen. They take the classic sleigh with reindeer and try to make their way over to the girl's house, but of course things go wrong.
Is that the map of the clauses? Used every Christmas night in history. Whatever your brother says, Arthur, it's the same old world. What is this? No idea. I've never seen it before. It's a city. New one. Ruddy cheek. They're always putting these things up. I remember the first time I ran into Chicago. Chicago wasn't on the map. Whoa! Now then, where are we? Here we are, see?
Whoa,
Oh, no, that's Peking.
Ahead, there's a... They can see us!
Well, pull the camouflage lever. Now then, we better draw in a few of these skyscrapers, just, There's one, that's a steam train, you ninny.
Whoa! I'm gonna do this one! Whoa!
So, what do they call this place? Toronto.
Toronto's in Canada!
The Santas always come through Canada. Nobody lives here. It's nice and quiet. Till your brother came along with all his "you can't cut through Saigon, there's a war" rubbish. I don't need him to tell me what's ahead. I've got eyes.
Santa!
When I first saw the previews, I thought Arthur Christmas was going to be a very annoying character, similar to Buddy the Elf, but more of a dweeb. I was dead wrong. Yes, he's definitely a little dorky, but he's also a guy who takes his role at the North Pole very seriously. He answers most of the mail to Santa and really understands what the children want and why. He knows that the real magic of the season isn't about a sleigh with flying reindeer or a spaceship. It's about the notion that Santa cares enough about every child that they're always worth remembering.
This picture, this drawing, it isn't of Dad. Or you, or Steve. This is Santa! And as long as we get the bike to Gwen before she wakes up, then Santa came! And he cares! Excuse! Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to reach Gwen Hines on Christmas Day.
Much of his conflict is how his brother, dad, and grandfather see the night. Steve sees this to show off how much a tight ship he can run and why he should be Santa. Santa himself loves the job, but finds that due to his memory and inability to adapt, he may need to step down. The Grand Santa simply wants to prove that the old way of delivering presents is what kids really want. But the film doesn't try to make any of these people villains when it would have been so easy to do so. They've simply gotten a little selfish about their wants, and they do see their mistakes by the end. I won't spoil the conclusion that comes to, but the best way to describe it is the same that I got from those Paddington movies. They all tell fun stories, but both end on a very upbeat tone in which you feel more positive about people, but especially about your own family. Along with a very good story, it also happens to be very funny. The movie was made by Aardman Animations, who was also responsible for the Wallace and Gromit shorts and movies like Chicken Run and Flushed Away. Arthur Christmas has a British sensibility to it, but it's much faster this time. The whole night of Santa is treated more like an action movie. It reminds me of that Edgar Wright movie, Hot Fuzz. There is just so much that happens on the screen that I tend to discover something new each time I see it. Arthur Christmas shows that no matter who delivers the present, then Santa really did come. Before I get to my number one choice, let's talk about some other movies that didn't make the list, but briefly wanted to say something about these honorable mentions. A Christmas Story. I think I saw this at the wrong time, but I find it overrated. I have come to appreciate it, but it's overplayed as quote-unquote the best. The Santa Claus. I get why people love this movie. It was fun as a kid, but it doesn't hold up as much as an adult. Tim Allen is charming regardless. Gremlins. It's a fun little creature feature set around the holidays, but it doesn't quite have enough of the Christmas feeling that I usually want. White Christmas. It's a fun classic and the songs are great, though the pacing is a tad slow, though I still enjoy watching this. The 1994 remake of Miracle on 34th Street. It's hard to beat the original, but this one does come close. The movie is gorgeous to look at, Richard Attenborough does make for a good Santa, and I love how they rewrote the court scene. Santa Claus the Movie. It's a very uneven movie about the origin of Santa that has a lot of the 80s charm. It's hard to call it a good movie, but it is a guilty pleasure. Elf. It's a fun movie, though this too is starting to get a little overexposed. Will Ferrell's charming, and I do like how the movie resembles a live-action Rankin Bass story. Now, let's get down to my number one all-time favorite Christmas movie. Number 1, Home Alone. Now I'm sure what you're thinking. Really? Home Alone? The 1990 movie of Macaulay Culkin stopping the burglars from getting into his house? It's a good movie, but why that one? Why Home Alone as your all-time favorite? Well, let's take a look at the story. We have the McAllister family getting ready for their big family trip to Paris. In a large home with a lot of kids, the youngest Kevin, played by Macaulay Culkin, is feeling ignored and hates that everyone sees him as worthless. And what is that his sister calls him?
Les incompetents.
That's right. After a blow-up with his family, he wishes they could all disappear. Due to a string of events, the family rushes out and getting on the plane, with poor Kevin left behind. He assumes his wish came true and starts to do what he wants. Jumping on the bed, going through his brother's private stash, eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me. This allows Kevin to get the kind of vacation he really wants. He even manages to get a lovely cheese pizza in a way that only a little pranker could.
Who is it?
It's Little Nero, sir. I have your pizza.
Leave it on the doorstep and get the hell out of here.
Okay. But what about the money?
What money?
Well, you have to pay for your pizza, sir.
Is that a fact? How much do I owe you?
That'll be $11.80, sir.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Cheapskate.
Hey, I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no good keister off my property before I pump your guts full of lead. 1, 2, 10.
Kevin also finds the house a target for the local crooks, the Wet Bandits. Harry, played by Joe Pesci, and Marv, played by Daniel Stern. He does his best to make them think that people are still there, but by Christmas Eve, they figure out he's by himself. Yes, people know about the traps and the slapstick that happens later in the movie, and of course it's funny, but what's it really about? At its core, Kevin thought that things would be better without his family. But even after a couple of days, he's reminded just how good he had it, especially with Christmas in the air. He's surrounded by a lot of nearby happy families as they gather in merriment, all unaware that this kid who's all on his own. He thought that by being alone, that would make him much more independent. Don't get me wrong, part of his character arc was that he grows and realizes that he was more capable, but being on his own also makes him realize that without a sense of family, he's lost the warmth and protection that the holidays allow. This is exemplified with his neighbor, Old Man Marley. He was seen as a legend in a negative light, all because he was by himself shoveling the sidewalks. Kevin bought into this and saw him as a scary man. But Christmas Eve at the church really showed us who he was.
You want to know the real reason why I'm here right now?
Sure.
I came to hear my granddaughter sing. And I can't come and hear her tonight.
You have plans?
No. I'm not welcome.
At church?
Oh, you're always welcome at church. I'm not welcome with my son. Years back, before you and your family moved on the block, I had an argument with my son.
How old is he?
Well, he's grown up. We lost our tempers, and I said I didn't care to see him anymore. He said the same, We haven't spoken to each other since.
If you miss him, why don't you call him?
I'm afraid if I call him, he won't talk to me.
How do you know?
I don't know. I'm just afraid he won't.
No offense, but aren't you a little old to be afraid?
You can be a little old for a lot of things. You're never too old to be afraid.
That's true. I've always been afraid of our basement. It's dark, there's weird stuff down there, and it smells funny, that sort of thing. It's bothered me for years.
The basements are like that.
Then I made myself go down there to do some laundry, and I found out it's not so bad. All this time I've been worrying about it, but if you turn on the lights, it's no big deal.
What's your point?
My point is, you should call your son.
What if he won't talk to me?
At least you'll know. Then you can stop worrying about it, and you won't have to be afraid anymore. I don't care how mad I was, I'd talk to my dad, especially around the holidays.
I don't know.
Just give it a shot, for your granddaughter anyway. I'm sure she misses you, and the presents.
The movie never says it, but Kevin sees the worst kind of adult one could be. A lonely one. One who only wants his family after years of being a recluse. Home Alone was the very first movie I recall seeing at age 3. As a child, I loved rewatching our multiple VHS tapes to relive the Christmas season and the comedy. It was the ultimate kid empowerment story. As an adult, I've only grown to love it more in a new light. Christmas is a nostalgic holiday, consistently going back once a year to capture a sense of the benevolence that we all felt as children. We either want our kids to have the same emotions, or for us to find something new each season. Most of the time, we can never get back the exact same memories from before, but if even a little bit of it is found, then the magic of Christmas was also found. We use every December 25th to create new memories. Kevin learned at a young age that Christmas brought him back to his past memories of the holiday. We can tell that even if they were chaotic, they were still more positive memories than negative. His family were the people that he wanted to be around. He even goes as far as visiting Santa to explain what he really wants for Christmas.
I'm Kevin McAllister, 671 Lincoln Boulevard. Do you need the phone number?
That's right.
Okay, this is extremely important. Would you please tell him that instead of presents this year, I just want my family back. No toys, nothing but Peter, Kate, Buzz, Megan, Linny, and Jeff. And my aunt and my cousins. And if he has time, my Uncle Frank. Okay?
Okay. See what I can do.
Even at my worst and most stressful moments, I take a moment to think about the things I'm grateful for. My new wife, my parents, my brother, the rest of the family, the new family I got when I got married. I want to know that I always have people that I can turn to. And of course, I can see these people every Christmas. Everyone wants that sense of family. This can even be true for those that see their lovers as families, their friends as family, their pet as family. It's whoever gives you that positive feeling that you're not alone. Home Alone reminds us that everyone needs that family, even when we don't always see it. If Kevin can grow in 3 days to see that his best Christmas gift would be his family coming home, then I hope for you adults out there, you could see how your loved ones are excited to see you. They want to celebrate the holidays with you as much as you do with them. Home Alone remains a yearly watch for me, along with an occasional viewing, in case if I want that Christmas feeling the rest of the year. It always brings me home and emphasizes our need for human connection. I loved it as a child. I love it as an adult. And that is why I consider Home Alone my favorite Christmas movie of all time. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have your own top 10 list? I'd love to know. I'm really grateful that I've been able to chat with you all last year, even if I didn't get as many episodes out as I would have. Now that my wedding has come and gone, I'll have a lot more time to get out some more material for you. More deep dives, more Almost Christmases, and more Nicktoons Christmas retrospectives, which I realized I haven't done in a while. I hope you all have the merriest of Christmases this year and around somebody special. January will be a month where I'll be taking a brief hiatus to regroup myself and go on my upcoming honeymoon. But don't step away too long. My social media pages will be starting on a fresh countdown for 2024, where I hope everyone will be everyone's year to shine. Along with more episodes, I have another project in the works that I can't wait to announce for you all. But now that we're close to Christmas, take the time to enjoy these days before we move over into the next year. Decorate, open presents, be merry, be joyous, be generous, be happy, be the one to make the day special. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will see you in 2024. Merry Monday to all, and to all, a good night.
Thank you for joining us on this sleigh ride into the magical world of Christmas movies. Check us out for weekly rides into your favorite Christmas classics and their histories. Be sure to give us a positive review on iTunes if you like what you heard. And don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram for updates and special news. Consider subscribing on Patreon in order to help keep the show going and to gain access to some special gifts not available to the public. Merry Monday to all, and to all a good night. See you next week.
Cut. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.